On August 20, 2026, OpenAI is reported to have open-sourced the Codex harness, the execution framework that sits between the model and the machine. 3 components: Codex exec, the Codex SDK, and app server. A note on sourcing before we go further. This release postdates the material I can independently verify, so treat the specifics of the announcement as reported rather than confirmed. What can be documented is everything leading up to it, and that record is unusually clear about why this move matters. Because OpenAI did not open source the model, it open sourced the thing that drives it. In agent engineering, harness is a term of art. The model produces tokens. The harness decides what happens next. It runs the tool loop. Model proposes a command. Harness executes it, feeds back the result, repeats. It manages the sandbox. It handles approval policies, context assembly, file diffs, and session state. Practitioners have argued for 2 years that on real software tasks, harness quality accounts for a large share of measured performance. Same weights, different scaffolding, materially different results. That claim is contested in its strong form, but the direction is not seriously disputed. This did not begin in 2026. On April 16, 2025, OpenAI released Codex CLI as an open-source project under the Apache 2.0 license, a local coding agent, initially TypeScript, later rewritten in Rust. On May 16, it previewed Codex as a cloud-based software engineering agent inside ChatGPT. Then, on September 15, 2025, it shipped GPT-5 Codex alongside the first Codex SDK, a TypeScript interface for embedding the agent in other software with thread resumption and structured output. So the repository was already public. What changed in 2026, according to the release, is that the harness became the product. Start with Codex exec. The interactive Codex CLI expects a human at the keyboard, reviewing diffs, approving commands. Codex exec strips that out. It is the non-interactive mode. 1 prompt in, 1 completed run out. No human in the loop. That sounds minor. It is not. Non-interactive execution is what lets an agent run inside continuous integration, inside a cron job, inside another program's sub-process. It is the difference between a tool you use and a component you deploy. It also forces a design decision most agent frameworks dodge. What does the agent do when nobody is there to say yes? The SDK is the second piece, and the one builders should look at hardest. It exposes the same loop as a library. You start a thread, you run a turn, you get back structured events, not a wall of terminal text you have to pass with regular expressions. You can resume a prior thread, which means state survives across invocations. That combination is what makes pipelines possible. One agent triages an issue, a second writes the patch, a third runs the test suite and reports. Each is a thread. The orchestration logic is yours. The framework supplies execution. It deliberately does not supply the workflow. The third component, app server, is the least discussed and arguably the most consequential. It runs Codex as a persistent server speaking a structured message protocol, the same surface OpenAI's own IDE extension and desktop clients use to drive the agent. The significance is architectural. If your editor, your web dashboard, and your automation all talk to one server, you get one session model instead of 3 divergent re-implementations. It is the same pattern that made the language server protocol the backbone of modern editors. Standardizing the interface is often how a project outlives the company that wrote it. Now the strategic read. Open weights would let anyone run OpenAI's capability without OpenAI. Open Harness does the opposite. Every pipeline built on the SDK still calls a model, and the default is the one OpenAI sells. This is a well-worn play. Give away the integration surface, keep the metered resource. It builds distribution, gathers telemetry on real-world agent failures, and converts external engineering effort into improvements to your own scaffolding. The counter-argument is genuine. The harness is model-agnostic in principle. Nothing structurally prevents someone from pointing it at competing weights. Whether that happens at scale is the open question. Context matters here. OpenAI was not first. Anthropic shipped an SDK around Claude Code, letting developers build on the same agent loop as its own product. Google released Gemini CLI under Apache 2.0. Independent projects like OpenHands built open agent frameworks from the start. By mid-2026, the pattern was industry-wide. The model stays proprietary, the harness goes public, and the competition shifts to whose scaffolding developers standardize on. That is a fight over defaults, not capability. And defaults, historically, are stickier than benchmarks. 3 things determine whether this release matters in a year. First, licensing. Whether the harness remains permissively licensed as the strategic stakes rise. Second, whether the app server protocol is adopted by tools OpenAI does not control. Third, whether anyone ships a serious production pipeline pointing this harness at a non-OpenAI model. If all 3 happen, the framework outgrows its author. If none do, it was distribution strategy wearing an open-source badge. The deeper point stands either way. For 2 years, the industry treated model weights as the asset. The 2026 pattern suggests the execution layer, the loop, the sandbox, the protocol, is where the durable position actually sits.